Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. It's me, Rudo, back for vacation, joined by Jesse Montano, doing all the hard work this week for us, being on the show. Look,
hey,
I'm gonna be.
Summer, we all have to do it 1 week of hard work, right? In the off season,
at least try a little bit, you know.
Yeah, everybody gets one. Yeah.
Fair enough. I'm gonna be honest with you. The NBA Finals start tonight. I don't think there's a lot of people who care about the Colorado Avalanche right now. I just don't think there's a lot of you. We appreciate you hanging out in chat or listen and post on the podcast or on YouTube with us. So thank you. We will talk some hockey today. But
even tomorrow, I feel like there will be more interest. But it's just like first ever NBA Finals game the Nuggets are in. It's being hosted in Denver for the first time. Like today's about the Nuggets, and it rightfully should be.
Of course, there's little doubt about that. So that's where we wanted to start our show. We're going to do our best to put a hockey spin on this and do some comparing, do some learning from the Denver Nuggets on today's show. This is an impossible question, Jesse, so just do your best. But if you had to pick an NHL team to compare the Denver Nuggets to, who would it be? Is it, hey, they made the finals, so they're Vegas or Florida? Is it, hey, they have these types of players, so they're like an Edmonton?
Mm-hmm. Does it have to be a this year's NHL?
No, any year, anytime.
And this is I understand this is a cop-out answer-ish. But really, dude, I mean, for me, it really is last year's Avs team. This Nuggets team feels to me very, very similar, where they've got the depth support. They've got, I know MPJ isn't young, but he's a younger guy.
Yeah.
You've got the young key contributors. And then most importantly, Rudo, you and I have talked about this several times now. You need star players to win, especially in the NBA. You need star players. You need elite talent at the top of your roster. They've got that. Nikola Jokic, I mean, to me, I think he's more of like in the Cale Makar tier, where it's like, this is a one-of-one, clear and away the best at not only at his position, but among the elite of the elite in the league. Yep. You have that for the Nuggets, and really just kind of watching this playoff run underscored by the Western Conference Final is where it's like, look, can you nitpick and find shortcomings with this Nuggets team? Sure. You can do that with every team. There's shortcomings for all of them. Last year for the Avs, the question mark was in net. Can this first time, playoff goaltending really hold up? And really what that Avs team last year proved, and what I think this Nuggets team is kind of on the path of proving is, we have our deficiencies, but we're just so good it doesn't matter. We're just such a complete team. We have players at every level. To me, Jamal Murray is kind of in the Nazem Kadri role, where it's like, this is a really high-end player by themselves. Maybe even put him in the Mikko Rantanen role, right?
I closer to Mikko for me, yeah.
This is a really high-end player alone, but you don't have time to keep a special eye on them because you have your hands full. For the Avs, it's Nathan McKinnon, it was Cale Makar. For the Nuggets, Jokic is the guy you got to watch. Jokic can beat you by himself.
Yep.
Which means you're not paying as much attention to guys like Jamal Murray, like Michael Porter Jr. Really the list just kind of goes on for them. That's what this team feels like to me. Sure, you can nitpick and find deficiencies. Yeah, they haven't done it. Oh, well, he's never been this far, whatever. They're just better than everyone else.
To me, that's a great call out, especially they're 12-3. The Avs are 12-2 going into the finals, finished 16-4.
Well, and to hit the nail just even harder on the head, all you have to do is look at the two Western Conference Finals. Last year, it was Colorado, it was Edmonton, and the conversation was, yes, the Avs wow, they look really good, but can they contain Edmonton? Can they stop the dynamic duo of Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl? Can they contain them enough to get out of this series? Not only did the Avs show that they were capable of beating those two head to head, the rest of the roster was just far and away better. 4 games, you're done. That's it. It's the same thing this year, right down to the Nuggets have been good. Can they stop the dynamic duo? Can they stop AD and LeBron?
Yep.
And again, not only did they do that, they do it in 4
Dominant
games.
fashion, yeah.
And most of the games were not particularly close. Game 1 and game 4 were. Sounds awfully familiar.
It really, it's like eerily similar. If they go 4-1 in the finals and finish 16-4, it's going to be super, super weird.
It's going to be crazy, dude.
On how similar their runs do end up being. The other side I wanted to take from this, because I really don't have any arguments with you on a team that they're similar to. You could get into like weirder, longer conversations where they haven't won a chip yet. It's like, oh, well, are they like Buffalo or whatever? But no, they're not.
I will say, maybe going on that, that kind of think track, coincidentally, ironically, it's the NHL team that's from Miami. It probably is the Florida Panthers. Never won before, never really had much postseason success, and were maybe a bit undersold even by us.
It's a fair point.
Coming into the playoffs. Obviously, they're seeded very different. The Nuggets win the West. The Panthers come in as an 8th seed. But again, aside from just the national media doesn't pay attention, like we're all very clear on that narrative. It is just a little bit of like, man, did we sleep on the Panthers a bit in the same way that it feels like national media is saying
slept on the Nuggets? Yeah,
shit, we slept on these Nuggets a bit.
Yeah, a bit. Give
me the benefit of the doubt, all right?
At least I was talking about the Panthers by the second round, okay? National, it's the finals, and they're still not talking about the Nuggets, all right? So.
Yeah. I have a feeling that'll change a lot here in the next couple of days, because here is the one thing I will say, and Nuggets fans are going to, march on my house when I say this. I do think there is a little bit to, you have to win one first.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. Not to the level that they've been disrespected. But
I agree. I completely agree. I completely agree with that. The one where I really had to draw the line in the sand was I've never seen him play. Sure, maybe she meant I've never seen him live. Whatever, but it's like, why? Why would you even leave the door open for that? Mark Jackson leaving Jokic off the ballot. I'm totally with you. It's gone much further, but I do think there is something to, you have to win to get into that room to be constant conversation. I will say, I don't think that has happened as much for the Avs this year as maybe I was expecting.
I agree.
I don't think they got anywhere near the national buzz that you've seen past Stanley Cup champions get in the year following, but I'm not splitting hairs.
It wasn't buzz, but at least they're like, oh yeah, the Avs are still really good, it turns out.
Right. Yeah. I'll say at least a lot of people picked them to win a lot of shit again this year.
Yeah. So I hear what you're saying, and I do agree. I would say, like, especially if you're not a big market, it's not even like win. It's like, have you won one in the last 15 to 20 years? And if the answer is no, they don't really talk about you.
And really, the only reason for a long time that the Avs were kind of included in that conversation was because their most recent one was Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg, Ray Bourque, Patrick Wall. Like, it was just like you can't turn on a hockey channel without one of those people being referenced,
idolized, or something. Something. Yeah. The other side of this I did want to talk about is, can you look at other teams around the world, of not in your sport, the best at what they do, like the Nuggets, and can you learn things from them? Can the Avs take a look and say, hey, we see the Nuggets run this play where they isolate Jamal Murray, they let him do his thing. Is there a way to apply that to hockey, to make an ISO play for a Nathan McKinnon or something like that?
It's hard to say in terms of X's and O's, but I'm 100% positive that these two franchises, and it's part of the reason why I think this team maybe feels so much like last year's Avs team. I'm positive that Michael Malone and Jared Bednar have swapped notes. Jared Bednar talked to us about it this year. Yeah, I've got to know him. He said, we don't get into a lot of the X's and O's, but we talk a lot about philosophy and culture and communication and things like that. And that's why I don't, like I said, to me, it feels like a cop-out answer to say that this Nuggets team is a lot like last year's Avs team, but it's because I think that that's kind of intentional.
Quite literally being led the same way by their coach.
Right. Yeah. Being led the same way. So, I don't know if you can, I'm sure there are, when you're talking about, X's and O minds at that level, like you said, the highest level of proficiency at what they do. I'm sure there are small little things where you say, look how they run this here to try to draw the double team, try to draw the defender off of, you just use Jamal Murray and double team Jokic as he drives the paint a bit here, then kick that back out. What can we do where it's meant to, distract you? Hey, Nathan McKinnon's wind up for the one time, Nikita Kucherov is maybe a good example of this.
Yeah.
Draws you in on the one timer and then on the one timer swing,
Slips
I guess.
it.
I don't know if you call it. Yeah. Ends up bumping it to another one timer in the slot. So, I don't know, maybe if you are Jared Bednar, you say, wow, look at the way the Nuggets do this. And they find a way to isolate that, what we were saying earlier, Jamal Murray on many other NBA teams would be the best player on the floor. For us, he's the second best player on the floor, and we can draw coverage away from him. Look how they do that. Wow, what can we do here that we, maybe we move Nate to the bumper and, Miko tees him up, and right when you think he's going to tee it up, he goes back out to Miko and blah, blah, blah. I don't doubt that when you're talking about people that think the game at that level, maybe, but I definitely do see it as more of like a philosophy, how we actually run the team, the way that we're all bought in, et cetera, et cetera.
For sure. Also hard to say, hey, we need to set up more plays for Miko to score. He only scored 55 last year.
But hey, if you can figure something out by watching the Nuggets that says there are ways that you can set these things to intentionally draw defenders away, maybe in a different way than what we thought. Again, if there's anyone that's going to figure that out, it's going to be Jared Bednar.
Agree 100%. And honestly, I think the leadership of this goes even further than just a head coach. You look at the rest of this Nuggets team, and it's a lot like the Avs, where it's like, hey, this was a team that got built internally for the most part. Of course, they have their trades and whatever, but Jokic is a second-round pick for them. Even going down to the rookies, when you talk about someone like Christian Brown, is drafted by the Nuggets.
Well, dude, it's Jokic, it's Murray, it's MPJ, who they kind of, I don't necessarily want to say took a flyer on, but like he was coming off a back injury that kept him out, I believe, the entire season, his last year in college, or at least the majority of it. Like they have made, for the core, the part of the Nuggets team that is making the biggest difference, having the most impact on a game-to-game basis, they are all drafted. They all are homegrown. And then you mentioned a guy like Christian Brown, who's a young kid, and you can maybe kind of liken him to like a new hook, maybe for the Avs, where it's like, he's coming off your bench. He's in the bottom. He's on the back half of your lineup. But in the role that he's in, he's extremely effective. Mm-hmm. And you feel better about a guy like him coming off your bench than the bench situations for, again, I'm not even going to limit it to the Miami Heat, as the Nuggets just proved, at least 3 other teams in the NBA, if probably not, a lot more than that. There's probably half the teams in the league that would love to have a guy like Christian Brown coming off the bench when he does. In the same way that, I remember talking to people last year about Bowen Byram in the final, that there was national media looking around going, holy shit, they've got 2 of these guys. Like, and he's a second, third pairing, depending on which part of the playoffs you were talking about.
Yep.
But again, that's a Colorado draft pick for the Nuggets. It's a Denver draft pick. Significant.
And this goes beyond just the Avs, to be clear. You look at that Tampa team, which, yes, again, every team does a good job of moving around the edges and getting those trade pieces to get to that level. But it's all on top of the Kucherovs, the Stamkos, the points.
Yep.
If that doesn't make up your team, if you try and go buy a team, you try to go buy a John Tavares into your top 6, you get Toronto'd.
Mm-hmm.
And that way.
What I really do love about the Nuggets, go back, let's see, it's 2023, 7 years. And dude, I didn't think, with the way that the NBA was trending, you were in the heart of the super team era I really didn't know if the Nuggets could ever win an NBA championship because it was
they were never going to get the star power to be able to compete.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They were never going to get the star power. And for how many years in a row there, it was Golden State Warriors versus whichever team LeBron is on. And, then Boston, gets, their big three. The Knicks get their big three. LeBron had just left the Heat.
But those guys tried to do this year.
Right. And so it's like, that was really the formula in the NBA for a long time. And yeah, is it lucky that Nikola Jokic turned out to be the superstar that he is? Of course, but you have to get lucky with prospects and draft picks and stuff like that. The Avs are extremely lucky that the 4th overall pick, a pick that they felt they had lost on, they lost the lottery
player in the world.
right. Ends up being arguably, depending on which day you're talking about, is the best or the second best player on earth. Like, you have to get a little bit lucky in your draft. The Nuggets did their homework. They did their due diligence. They took Nikola Jokic. And, they've been able to turn a franchise around on it. And it's just the other thing that I had two other things that I wanted to liken them to last year's team. And one of them was what you just brought up, the homegrown. The other thing that I liked about it, or that I like about it, is there doesn't seem to be the emphasis on individual accolades.
Yeah.
And when they win game 3 in LA of the Western Conference Final, the Nuggets, there's the video of Jamal Murray walking to the locker room and he says, 5 more. He's not celebrating. He's not high-fiving. He's not, fucking woo. He's walking to 5 more. And that was the mentality of the Avs team all last year. Yep. They allowed themselves to be a little excited when they won the Western Conference Final. By the time they were leaving the building that night, they were like, we got to win 4 more of these.
Yeah,
we got to win 4 more of these against the best team that we've played yet so far. And, that was, I really do think, like, being around that, seeing that last year, it really drove home for me. I was like, that's a championship mentality, not just sports, not just hockey, but like, that's a winner's mentality.
Yep.
Of saying, we're here for a goal. We're happy with the success that we have, but we're not satisfied.
Yeah.
Right. The fact that it really did to me feel like Joel Embiid was satisfied with the MVP because that was all he cared to talk about for the back half of the season. It's like, yeah, it's no surprise he was a complete no-show when the season was on the line.
Came out and shit the bed. To be fair, that whole team shit the bed in that series.
Totally. But like, that's where what we're talking about. Your stars are supposed to get you through because you're going to have nights like that. Yep. You're the MVP. But it seemed like that was your whole season. There was an interview this morning. I think it was Jamal. Or no, I'm sorry. It was MPJ that I saw where he said, like, I don't think people fully understand, like, genuinely, Joker could not have cared less about the MVP. Like, for real, there wasn't another rung below for him to take his care about MVP. And it's just like, to me, that's the mentality you have to have if you're serious about winning a championship.
Yep.
I don't doubt for a second it means something to win an MVP. I'm sure it irks Nathan McKinnon just a little bit that he's lost out on 3 of them. But I'm sure the minute he lifted that cup over his head, he was like, don't care.
Yep.
We
got the
won
big trophy. Don't care about the small one. Yep.
Don't care anymore. And Kale couldn't get the Conn Smythe out of his hands fast enough.
Yep. He did not want to be holding on to that.
No. 5 nights before he won the Norris Trophy, and all Jackie Redmond wanted out of him was a good quote about the Norris, and he was like,
would not give him anything. He's like, I got a bigger prize. He's
like, I just want to get back to the hotel with the boys. Like I hate even being here. Like, this is not about me. That's not what this week is about. It's not what we're working towards. Like, it's cool. Great. Thanks. Don't care. And I really did think, like, everyone, that's just the ultimate example of everyone pulling the rope in the same direction. And that's what I think the Nuggets have going. And that's why I think the Miami Heat are a great story. I think it's awesome that they're here. But to me, this year's Nuggets team has 2022 Avs vibes, and the Miami Heat have 07 Rockies vibes. It's a great story. They've done some awesome things. They've got good players. Jimmy Butler's a phenomenal athlete, an outstanding basketball player. Are you really picking him over Jokic? Like
it was their conference final series where you felt like the cracks started to show, and they get through it in 7. Obviously, they make it. Credit there, but that's a series they're up 3-0, and it took them 7. And you're like, I don't know about this.
Right. Now, I will say, had Boston come back and won that, I wouldn't have been as confident about the Nuggets in the final because that's just a big emotional boost. And, Jason, again, that's another team with high-end players. Jason Tatum may be dealing with an injury. We don't really know. But when the Heat got through, I completely agree with you. Just kind of watching that series play out, you were like, oh fuck. That's a very beatable team. That's an extremely beatable team. And I just think the Nuggets are too dialed in. I think the roster is too high end. If the Heat win the NBA final, I will be very surprised. And something that probably means something went horribly wrong for the Nuggets.
Yep, agree. On that note, if you're not into the playoffs, first of all, why?
Yeah, what do you
but mean? If you got eliminated, if you're want to live it up like the Avs, Colorado Golf. You can join 75,000 golfers with Colorado Golf Association today and receive an official USGA handicap with worldwide access to score posting and GPS tracking. Membership means more at the CGA, and members get the opportunity to play exclusive courses around the state, including Aspen Glen Club, the club at Ravenna, and the Pinery. Many more courses, too. You got to go check it out. Members also get access to exclusive member content with offers and discounts from national and local companies, including Imperial, Golf Tech, PGA Tour Superstore, and others. You can go right now to Colorado Golf Association at coloradogolf.org and use code DNVR5 to get $5 off your membership with Colorado Golf. It's a great deal. If you're a golfer, highly recommend you go check these dudes out, get your membership, and go enjoy some amazing golf on some amazing courses. Also, when you're done with your golfing outing, make sure you get yourself a Breck Brew, the official beer of DNVR. 8 different kinds on tap down at the DNVR bar. A great place to go grab a drink after your round, or anywhere else. They're everywhere in the 50 United States. You can use their Breck beer locator online at breckbrew.com. Go find it. No excuses. It's everywhere. Go get yourself a delicious Breck Brew. They have dozens of flavors, so you can get it wherever you need. And make sure you're looking good wherever you go, because let's be honest, it's sunny out these days. Lots of sun out around Denver. I know it rains in the afternoons. Yeah, but the sun's out bright shining. You got to get your Shady Rays. Go to shadyrays.com today to order yours. You can use the DNVR code, and buy 2 pairs, you get 50% off. You can also buy more than that and get 50% off, but it's got to be at least 2 pairs. Tons of different designs and styles. Technically, if you don't even want sunglasses, they've got ski and snowboard goggles, if that's your thing too. So they got you covered on that. Different polarizations. If you stare at screens all day like me, they have blue light filtering. Tons of options when it comes to Shady Rays. You can go check them out again at shadyrays.com, or if you're local, you can go to their brick and mortar in the Park Meadows Mall. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Do want to move forward here. As much as we love the Nuggets, we are a hockey podcast, so we do have to talk a little bit about the news. Jesse, I know you and Megan did a show yesterday. I don't think you talked too much about Brad Treliving being the big announcement of the guy Toronto is going with, and we'll get into some of these other options as well.
But before we go to, I got 10 seconds for the Nuggets thing.
Yeah.
No, just they're doing gold shirts tonight for the Nuggets.
Yep.
And that's what they should have been doing from the beginning. I don't know why they were doing maroon and blue and all that. It looks great on the seats. I hope everyone who shows up puts it on, because I think when you do, white outs or gold outs, I guess, it looks great when it's full participation. But I just saw the first pictures of it, and that's what they needed to do this whole time. It looks fantastic. We didn't get too much into it yesterday. But yeah, Brad Treliving in for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Really, the more that I talked through this one over the last 10 days, the more and more it made sense, just given where the Leafs are at with their roster, with their window, all of that stuff. Just given the experience that Brad Treliving went through last year with Johnny Gaudreau, Matthew Tkachuk, big name players, U.S.-born players playing in Canada in a high pressure Canadian market. Gosh, who does that sound like on the Toronto Maple Leafs? And in need of contract extensions, and he lost Johnny Gaudreau. He definitely took lessons from that one, and then dealt Matthew Tkachuk. He took lessons from that one as well. So I think it's a fit that makes sense. The one part that I find interesting, it's not that interesting given that I think the Leafs have 3 picks, but part of the condition on the Calgary Flames granting the Toronto Maple Leafs permission to talk to Tree Living is that he cannot be at the draft table in Nashville here coming up at the end of the month. It's June 1st, right? Yeah, at the end of the month. So again, kind of a weird little setup here. Not all that weird because the Leafs barely have any picks, but look, I think he's a guy that makes sense for them. They have a lot of important business to get done. They're in the middle of a competitive window. This didn't feel like the time for the Leafs to get cute with a first-time GM or something.
Is there any concern that his entire time in Calgary saw virtually 0 playoff success?
Yes. and this is where, it's hard because, we beat this drum a lot, Rudo, of like the NHL loves retreads.
They sure
God,
do.
They love retreads. and I think there is something to be said for having experience. It's a tough job. It's a tough industry. Having that built-in relationship with other general managers. I think there is something to be said for that. I don't think it's worthless. But I think a lot of teams put way too much emphasis on that. I do stand by what I said. I think where the Leafs are at, unless you were planning on saying we're starting over, it felt like a difficult time to plug in a fresh face.
I don't disagree.
But really, you just won't convince me otherwise. You truth serum Brendan Shanahan. There's just no way that they weren't looking at the Gaudreau and Tkachuk situation saying, gosh, we might be staring down the barrel of something just like this. It would help to bring someone in who's already learned those lessons. That had to have been the biggest selling point of Brad Treliving.
That. Yeah,
had to have been, because you're right. Like, he accomplished next to nothing
as far as winning is concerned. Results. Not much. Yeah.
Right. And so I don't know, that it's a great argument to be made for going with a fresh face. Is, hey, why not bring someone in who, doesn't have a decade plus of no playoff success, but at the same time, you're trying to make decisions on the fly. You're trying to figure out, are we tearing this down? Are we moving anybody? And this just might be the most qualified person to do it at this exact moment.
And let's not make any mistake about it. I think just about everyone could see this season that problem is as much Daryl Sutter as it was any front office issue. So how much of that is coaching compared to other front office stuff?
And there is a bit of revisionist history being done on the Matthew Tkachuk trade right now. When that deal went through, the narrative
everyone thought Calgary won that thing. Yeah.
Was Brad Treliving fleeced the Florida Panthers? How did Brad Treliving pull? So, like, at the time, it was looked on very favorably. And even still, like, even through the Matthew Tkachuk success, it was a down year for Huberdeau, but like, you have to assume that this was a down year. Maybe Jonathan Huberdeau is not the guy he was the year the Panthers won the President's Trophy, but man, you have to feel that he's a lot better than what we saw this past season in Calgary.
Well, and let's not forget, he trades for Huberdeau and Weegar.
Yep.
And then he gets their contract extensions done too.
Immediately. So
it's not like he hung his team out to dry when they didn't succeed this year. Mm-hmm. There's some longevity to that move for them. Now, if Huberdeau doesn't get back to a decent level of play, they're in trouble. But
well, and I mean, honestly, again, we were kind of bagging on him for the lack of playoff success, which he deserves.
Yeah.
He acquires Markstrom, I believe, 2 seasons ago. Then the following summer, he does Huberdeau and Weegar, gets them extended, and then gets Nazem Kadri done. That's 4 major pieces you added to your organization. You found a way to make it all work under the salary cap. And again, you just won't convince me that team will have a bounce back, won't have a bounce back season next year. I think they were a lot better than they showed this year. I think there was a lot of change that happened and they needed a season to acclimate to that. So, I mean, you have to give him credit. On paper, everyone really likes the team that he put together. That was where it just kind of translated to on the ice. They have to start Brad Treliving is like, he has 0 games played last season. He was not on the ice for any of those. That is not his job.
Yep.
He put together a team that most people liked.
I will say, to play a little bit of the opposite side here, probably overpaid Nazem Kadri.
Yes.
Kadri's not an 80-point player. He's more of a 65-point guy.
Yeah.
Ended up having to give Sean Monahan away, literally. Gave away a first to get rid of him, got nothing in return.
Yep.
So it's not like he's this perfect GM dancing through raindrops. He does make mistakes. He does have to solve some of these things at times.
Totally.
I see everyone in chat talking about it. I don't disagree. Personally, I would have preferred Dubas over Treliving.
Mm-hmm.
But especially in Toronto, it's tough, man. Someone's head's got to roll, right?
Well, and really, Rudo, I mean, I guess I don't know how you felt about this. I really did think something had to give.
Yep.
I will say, if it was me, that something would not have been Kyle Dubas.
I'm with you. Sheldon Keefe would have certainly gone first.
Right. I would have started there and then assessed.
Yep.
So it wouldn't have been my move. I understood why, especially after the press conference, where he said, I got to check with my family. I don't even know if, more or less that I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. I got it. I understood why.
But like, there were signs, just the way he approached the deadline, it was like, oh, this dude's job's on the line. Like,
right. And so, he would have been the one that I kept, but I do firmly believe that they needed to change something.
I agree.
I just didn't think you could run it back identically to what has fallen flat on its face 6 years in a row.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. You made the second round. Wahoo, whoop-de-doo. You're one game. You were one more game closer to your goal than
right.
not getting out of the first round. Like,
seriously. So, yeah, I don't know. I understand the reason for the change. I think the other thing here that does need to be mentioned, I don't know, I guess maybe, where does Brad Treliving fall on the analytics?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
That's one thing where honestly, and I think we'll get into Dubas here in just a second.
We will, yeah.
If he was wanting a diminished role, which it sounded like maybe he did.
Yeah.
I genuinely, I said, if this guy's looking to be a consultant in a front office,
go be a head of analytics
advisor,
or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I said, seriously, I could see the Avs circling back to this dude.
Definitely.
Because he fits what they like to do. There's a reason they pursued him a few years ago, right before he was made GM in Toronto. Mm-hmm. I said, if that's really what he's looking for, I could see him doing that, something like that, because he is, I don't know the right way to say it. So big on analytics, is such a believer in analytics.
High on him, I don't know.
Yeah. It's built around analytics. So that will be the one thing that'll be interesting to see. Can Brad Treliving, because that's how that entire organization is built, can he work into that, or is he going to try to make, are we going to end up with the Patrick Waugh thing where the Avs are trying to embrace analytics and Patrick Waugh was like
each other the whole way down? Yeah,
right. No, that's not what I want to do. We need veteran guys. We need bigger guys. We need this, that, and the other. And is it going to lead to a fracture within that front office? That's the one part that may be concerned about. Obviously, I'm sure that they've talked to him about that, through the interviews and stuff. Hey, this is how we like to lead the team. But that will be the one thing that I think will be interesting to keep an eye on. Also, how he fits in with, that alleged kind of model there that Kyle Dubas was saying he was unhappy with. I got to check in with Brendan Shanahan. Brendan Shanahan's got to check in with the board. And the board goes back to Shanahan. Then the board comes back to me. And now I can make a move.
Well, and let's not kid ourselves. He's got a lot of work to do too. He's got half a forward core signed right now, and those guys are pretty good, but he's got to fill out that bottom six.
Yep.
And then next year, he literally could have a 1 year shot at this before this team just implodes.
Seriously. And now suddenly he's stuck with fix it.
Yep. Could be a tough job.
Yeah. Yep. So credit to him for taking it.
Yeah, someone's got to do it. Glad it's not me. We'll put it that
Seriously,
way.
bro.
Okay,
Seriously.
Paycheck might entice me to be a little bit happier about doing that job, but
you talked me into it. I got a price tag. For everything.
You mentioned it. Dubas, there were obviously going to be jobs available to him the second he was out of Toronto. He ends up becoming the president of hockey operations for Pittsburgh. Not in division, I guess, for Toronto, but at least in the same conference. Does that sting a little?
Can't feel good. I mean, I think if you were Brendan Shannon, you had to be hoping that he was going to stick with his
I need to reassess my life thing.
Toronto or nowhere. Yeah. Because look, dude, like one of the questions in this week's roundtable was, who's the one team that you think will make the biggest push for the one non-playoff team you think will make the biggest push for them next year? Megan and AJ went with, I think Ottawa and Buffalo, but I was like, it's Pittsburgh.
Well, they have to go all in every year, right?
Right. By the owner's wishes.
Yep.
If Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin are here, Fenway Sports wants to see the Pittsburgh Penguins not only getting into the playoffs, they want to see them competing for a Stanley Cup.
It's tough.
They brought in Kyle Dubas. He said he's going to act as general manager through July, and then they'll reassess.
Yep.
I think this is going to be an aggressive offseason for the Penguins. I think they're going to try to figure out what's happening in net. And that's the other thing to keep in mind too. Megan and I talked about it on an At the Rink a couple weeks ago. Probably about a month ago at this point. How we were saying like, is the page turning, on the Pittsburgh Penguins? When you went back and looked, their goaltending just failed them.
It was a nightmare.
It just failed them. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but theoretically, if the Pittsburgh Penguins were to go out and add John Gibson, Connor Hellebuck, are you not suddenly putting that team right back at the top of the Metropolitan Division? Or are they Atlantic? No, they're Metro.
I'll get their names mixed up every time. They have to be Metro, right? They're in the triangle of death out there.
But really, if they can go out and get a legitimate starting goaltender, I don't know. I think that's a team that you could very easily sell me on there in the Metro. Especially when you look at the teams ahead of them. Both New York teams, the Devils and the Hurricanes.
Yep.
Put John Gibson on that Penguins roster last year, and they're probably in there with the top three.
They're certainly getting by like the Islanders for a wild card spot with Gibson back there.
Totally. And so, it's just that to me is a team that's going to be interesting. That's why I think this hire is so interesting. Dubas going there, because I think there's a chance that this puts the Penguins right back into the territory of being a real problem for the Eastern Conference.
Well, and look, you don't have to look more than 4 months ago if you want to see a guy who knows how to go all in at the trade deadline. Dubas is your man for that.
Right. But now suddenly he's with an organization that has won cups before. They're fine with you going all in every year.
Yeah.
And there's some speculation that maybe it's going to be Jason Spezza that becomes the Penguins GM.
Interesting, yeah.
And now suddenly, I mean, like, it'll really kind of be like, if that's the case, it'll be very similar to the Joe Sakic, Chris McFarland setup, where it's like, yeah, Chris McFarland's the listed GM, but Joe Sakic has
go do the thing, you go do the thing.
Right. Joe has a lot of pull in that room. It'll be the same thing. And you're 100% right, Rudo. And really, I think the only reason that looking back on that deadline, it feels shitty is because of the results. But I liked a lot of what Kyle Dubas did at the deadline.
Yeah. I mechanically, other than the one thing is I feel like he probably did too much.
I agree.
But if you look at the moves individually, I think a lot of them you're like, yeah, no, this makes sense.
Yeah. That's a phenomenal way of putting it. On the whole, I agree. Probably one or two moves too many, but each individual transaction in a vacuum, you can talk yourself into the Maple Leafs won each of those deals.
Yeah, I mean, if you look down the list, okay. Oh, obviously the O'Reilly deal, loved it. That's not even really the deadline, that was before it, but made total sense for them. A good move. They go out and get Jake McCabe. I'm a big Jake McCabe fan anyway, so I really like that move. Sam Lafferty part of that deal as well. The one move I didn't like was Sandin for Gustafsson. I think that was stupid. But they did get a first round pick back for that as more assets. So I understand why. I just don't like it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one too.
They moved out Pierre Engvall, which he didn't really have a spot in the roster anymore, and then they flip a third round pick to go get Luke Shen to help round out their defense, which needed that help.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like,
Nola Chari, also part of the Ryan O'Reilly deal.
Yes, you're right. Thank you.
But so again, with the exception of the one that I agree with you, you get the first round pick back, so that helps. Again, you can none of those moves don't feel like desperate moves, you know?
Yep. It just feels like, did you need McCabe and Gustafsson and Luke Shen?
Right. Did you need to turn over 50% of your decor? Probably not. But, again, individually, I like the moves.
Yes, exactly. They did enough moves for 3 teams, and maybe they only needed to do enough moves for 2 teams. That's all.
Right. Yeah.
So honestly, and that's why there's more confidence for me in Dubas going to Pittsburgh than there is confidence in Treliving coming to Toronto. So,
I agree.
On that note, we are brought to you by the fantastic people over at Illegal Pete's. You can go get your delicious burritos today. 10 different locations here in Colorado, including one right by the bar. I actually think they have extended happy hour for the NBA Finals. It's to 8 p.m. now, I think.
It's through 8. Yep.
So they got you covered. I mean, you should still leave at 6. Actually, honestly, if you want to get into the DNVR bar, you might need to leave Illegal Pizza like 4 because the line's gonna be out the door.
There was a line as of about 30 minutes ago starting to form.
So if you want to be part of the bar scene, if you want to come watch along with us, you got to get there early for these Nuggets finals. You got to go check that out. But Illegal Pete's is the great place to pick up a burrito beforehand. There's even a location down in Arizona. Go check them out. Get fantastic fresh ingredients put in your burrito by Illegal Pete's. And last but certainly not least, we're brought to you by Pins and Aces, the official golf apparel merchandiser of DNVR. You can go to pinsandaces.com, use the DNVR code to get 15% off. They got polos, they got pants, they got cleats, they got hats, they got the liquor stick, they got the beer sleeve. Go right in your bag. All right, look, the liquor stick is like the coolest thing I've ever seen. Dude's just serving drinks out of his golf bag to like everybody. It's crazy.
I've talked about it. I've heard us talk about it. I haven't actually looked it up.
It's wild. It's got like a pump in it and everything. You will be the coolest dude on the golf course. I guarantee it. If you go get the liquor stick and put it in your bag. But whatever it is you might need when it comes to golf merchandise, they've got you covered. Again, pinsandaces.com with the DNVR code to order yours today. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. The one other, Jesse, let me ask you this first of all.
Let me pause real fast. A little bit of breaking news. Patrick Kane, his agent, Pat Brisson, has confirmed Patrick Kane had a hip resurfacing done today. Follow-ups are planned, but right now they are expecting a 4 to 6 month recovery time. So unrestricted free agent Patrick Kane
will not be back for the start of next year then.
Yep. So the Pat Brisson said that the goal of this was so that he could play for, quote, a long time. He wants to play for a long time, end quote. And that they think them and the doctors think that this procedure will help that happen, but 4 to 6 months for Patrick Kane. I apologize.
No. Let's talk about this. This probably takes the Avs out of the running for him. Not that they were probably in it anyway, but
I'm sure they were going to kick tires on it. Why wouldn't you?
It just doesn't make a ton of sense to say, hey, we have a guy out of our lineup. Let's replace him with a guy that won't be in our lineup.
I don't. That actually would make him the perfect candidate for the Avs to sign him, given the way that this past season
all went. Injuries all the time.
Just sign him. He's already injured. He's already an Av.
You can't beat it if you join it. If you can't beat it, join it, I guess.
So, seriously. So this is interesting. Who's going to be the one to take a flyer on him?
Yeah.
And what does the money look like? Is that now a 1-year deal?
Yeah, it has to reduce whatever the contract ends up being, right? But we've also seen, like, if Patrick Kane's not afraid to say, "Hey, this is where I want to go."
Yeah.
So,
because I mean, now here is the other side of that. If it is suddenly the market for him is a 1-year deal, let's see how he comes back from this. I don't know. Maybe I would put the Avs back into the running for him.
yeah,
1-year deal. We'll get him back around Christmas. If he's terrible, he walks.
This is one of those things too, where it's like, okay, you get to the end of June, July 1st. Your NHL teams would never tamper. But you're calling that dude's doctor and you're saying,
yeah,
how's he progressing? You know?
right. How is it actually looking? Yeah. That's going to be an interesting one, dude, because I don't think he's going back to the Rangers. I don't think they can afford him there. I don't think the Blackhawks have any plans to bring him back. I really did think that he was going to hit the market, true free agent.
Yeah.
I think this makes it muddy, dude.
I certainly think the Rangers aren't just like, yeah, we're going to do whatever it takes to bring him back now. That's for sure.
Yeah, and maybe that does open the door for him coming back. The term on the deal that he signs is going to be the part that I'm going to be interested to watch, because
me too.
Shit, if I'm a GM, I have a really hard time committing multiple years to a guy that won't even get on the ice for me until Christmas.
Well, and he's what, 32, 34. So. Jeez, yeah. Sure, maybe it's not a super serious procedure, but you're talking about a 34-year-old who just had a hip surgery.
Right.
Track record in the NHL there.
Well, and for a guy who already, and I don't know, maybe this injury was, holding him back a bit, but like for a guy that's already taken a few steps back from the prime of his career, he's already on this part of it.
Usually once you're on that part, it doesn't level off.
Right. Very rarely does it level off or get any better.
Not to say he isn't still a very good hockey player, for the record, but
oh yeah, he's great.
When the decline comes, it comes. That's something I'm sure we'll talk about a whole lot more come June 27th. But the other news of recent in hockey is Nashville, another team that missed the playoffs, firing their head coach and John Hines and hiring Andrew Brunette, ex-Av murderer.
Both, yeah, been on both sides of it.
He's got both sides there. Is coaching really Nashville's problem?
So, AJ made the point the other day that like this is going to give them a stylistic look that they've never had. It's going to be a lot more offensively focused. Not
so run through their defense. Yeah, sure.
Right. Which was ever depleting for the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's Yossi and a bunch of guys.
The Avs run a lot of their offense through their defense for a reason. The Predators do it because
they used to have a good defense 6 years ago.
Right, because I'm not really sure. So, it will give them a different look. So I don't know. Does that benefit the Matt Duchene's, Ryan Johansson's, the Philip Forsbergs? I don't know. I tend to lean to where you were just inferring of, I don't know if coaching was this group's problem. I think their problem is that they've got a bunch of second line players.
Mm-hmm. No amount of coaching can turn a second line talent into a first line talent.
Right. And it's just like that. That is what I think their biggest issue is. I think at the highest end, you could maybe get a Carolina-esque run out of them. But even then, I don't think their defense is anywhere close to what Carolina's is.
Yeah.
Right. And their offense lacks the exact same thing that Carolina's lacks, that is now continued to swing and miss in the playoffs. Of you don't have high-end talent. We started off this entire show saying doesn't matter the sport. It transcends whichever sport you're playing. You need elite players at the top of your lineup. The last 2 championships in Denver, the last 3 championships in Denver, and now the Nuggets, 4 wins away from one. In 2001, we already listed some of the names that are on the team. Sakic, Waugh, even remove Peter Forsberg because he didn't play in the final.
Super team.
Ray Bourque, Rob Blake, super team. The Denver Broncos in 2015, Peyton Manning. There were several others on that team, but end of list, Peyton Manning. Even though he was at the...
Von Miller.
Okay, yes. Yep. I'm sorry. I forgot about Von Miller.
The rest, I'm with you. It's not quite the same caliber.
Right. But it's like, even though Peyton Manning was near the end of his career, just having that type of player, one of the all-time greats, like, it means something. Last year's Avs, Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen. Like, you need to have the high end. And I'm sorry, Matt Duchene. I know you're a super nice dude. I know everybody who meets you really likes you. I know you're a great guy. You're not in that tier.
You're not a 1C on a team that's going to make a playoff run. You're just not.
Right. He fights to be a 1A
and a half.
Kind of a, yeah.
He can be a 1C on a team that doesn't make the playoffs. That's exactly who he is. Nashville sums it up perfectly. Yeah.
He's done that a lot.
Yep.
And look, obviously the collapse of Ottawa is not on him.
No.
But again, like, that was Ottawa traded for him. Hey, come be the first line center. And it's like, bro, he couldn't be the first line center on this version of the Avs.
Yep. It was
and
bad.
Then Nashville signed him. Come be a first line center. It's like, have you not been paying attention? And so that's their biggest issue. I mean, shit, dude, he almost had 100 points 2 seasons ago now. And it still wasn't enough.
Yep.
They got caved in. That first round series against the Avs wasn't even close.
It was not. The only reason any of the games are close is because Connor Ingram played 2 of the best games of his life.
Right. That he has or ever will play.
Yep.
And it's just like, I'll be anxious to see what they do here in the summer. New GM for the first time ever in Barry Trotz.
Yep.
And now a new head coach. Like, I don't know. Maybe they'll go out and make some changes. Maybe Matt Duchene is the 2C problem, and it's the ultimate hilarious story arc. I'm mostly just kidding. I'm like 99.9%.
O'Reilly and Duchene, put them back together.
and we finally get this like juggernaut down the middle, and the Avs go win another cup with Nathan McKinnon, Ryan O'Reilly, and Matt Duchene down the middle.
Wouldn't that be hilarious?
Dude, I actually would. Just for the LOLs, I would love
700K at Paul Stastny to be your 4C too. Why not?
Yeah. Bring EJ back for 1 year. Yeah. We're running this back. We'll run this back for 2010s Avs fans once. We're doing this once, and then we're not doing this anymore.
Oh, that'd be hilarious.
But all jokes aside, short of Nashville making moves, big moves like that, moving on from the Johanssons, the Duchenes. I'm not saying you got to tear it down completely, but like, you need a solution there.
You do. It's not something that you can just get away with not having.
Right. They've been stuck in 2C purgatory for years. That's all they can get is solid second line centers. And I'm with you. I don't know if an offensive minded Andrew Brunette head coach moves the needle at all.
I mean, the more you talk about it, the more it's like, okay, you have Andrew Brunette as an offensive head coach, but you also hired Barry Trotz as your GM, who's all defense all the time.
Right.
It'll just be interesting to see how that team plays out and tries to work themselves out of the worst place you can be, which is the Calgary zone.
Seriously. It's them, the Flames, it's Minnesota, it's Vancouver, where it's just like those teams are just stuck. Not quite good enough to be a playoff team, or if they are, they're nowhere near a serious contender, but not bad enough to be picking at the top of the draft and getting franchise-changing players. And then Nashville's other issue is when they have ended up there in the past, they trade those assets away.
Almost immediately, yep.
Right. And so it's just, I don't know. That's going to be an interesting one to watch. To me, none of their moves so far, front office and head coach, moved the needle for me. at all. We knew that Bruce Cassidy was going to make a difference in Vegas.
Yep.
I don't know if we thought it'd be to this extent, but like we knew that would be a jolt. I just don't know. Their player personnel is still an issue for me.
I agree. It's funny because we came out of Toronto feeling the opposite almost, where it's like they should have all the talent in the world, right, but maybe it's the head coach issue. But with Nashville, that's just not the case.
Because you do see that. You do see coaches lose dressing rooms. They lose buy-in.
For sure.
And really, I mean, the Pittsburgh Penguins are a great example of that. Was it 2015 their cut?
Whenever they hired.
Yeah, whatever their first of the back-to-backs were.
Yep.
That was a coaching change in the middle of the season. You could noticeably see the results on the ice. The last head coach, it had run its course. You needed a new voice.
Pretty clearly what happened to Daryl Sutter this year in Calgary.
Totally. And that's why you feel fairly confident saying they'll probably bounce back. Going back to the Brad Treliving conversation of you like those moves on paper. There's just no way they go this same way again next year.
Yep.
At least not to that extent. Nashville, I just don't, like you said, I agree with you completely. I think it's kind of the opposite, where it's like you need on ice personnel changes in addition to whatever else the hell you're trying to do.
All right. We can wrap up today's show. Jesse, any final thoughts? Any other things you wanted to touch on news-wise or otherwise?
I do think moving on from Poile was the right move for Nashville. That was one where talk about having had run its course. It was just the same vision over and over and over again. That move, I think, was needed, but they got to do something on the ice. That's it for today. Go Nuggets. Hopefully it gets off to a good start tonight.
Leave it at that. We will talk to you all tomorrow.